Hello and welcome to Thoughts in the Green Room with your host, Geoff Mays. This week, I want to talk about auditions and the rise of the self-tape. Let's take a look. So I'm going to start this off by saying I'm a full-time professional actor and I know what I signed up for when I got into this. I knew that one of the biggest challenges that I was going to face as an actor was finding stable, steady, and consistent work that would give me a regular income while dealing with the flexibility and the need for me to get to auditions during the daytime hours. Now, as much as I knew I was signing up for this, I gotta admit, it's a challenge. It's really hard to find a job that is flexible enough, that is lenient enough, that allows me the opportunity to work and make an income while still meeting my audition commitments. Now, I've had this discussion with a lot of other actors, and I've had this discussion with a lot of other artists in general, and I have to say that as an actor, in terms of the artists, we're kind of the low man on the totem pole in terms of this challenge. Now, I don't want to discredit the hard work that other artists put in, but I do want to put in that they have one advantage. And that is that they have the potential to maintain a full-time job while pursuing their craft. I'll give you one example. I got a friend who's in a band. They're working towards the regular trappings of, getting a tour, getting an album pressed, regular shows and gigs and making an income from it. Full throttle. But that typically happens after hours from the regular 9 to 5. So my friend holds a 9 to 5 job. They've held the 9 to 5 job for a very long time. They've got a wife and kids. They have a house and a mortgage and cars. All the things that 9 to 5 brings because they have an annual salary. His wife is not an artist, and his wife holds down a 9 to 5 salary, and you've got a double income, single child family, and they do quite well for themselves. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is easy. My buddy is very disciplined, and he comes home after 5 o'clock doing his 9 to 5 job. He sits down to dinner with his family, and then he goes to band rehearsal 3 nights a week. And he works on the craft. The band is getting somewhere, and they're becoming more and more affluent, and they typically work bars Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday nights to play gigs, to get their music out there. They've got a small following, so they meet the fans, all that kind of stuff. Now, again, I stress that this is not necessarily the easiest life, but there is the advantage that my friend has in the fact that because he's not on call and he's only got to worry about himself and his band members' schedule, that 9 to 5 he's able to supply himself with the means, monetarily speaking, to live a comfortable life, have savings set aside to help the band and promote himself, and actively pursue his craft. Now, I've tried this. I've tried to hold the full-time job. I've talked to other actors who have tried to hold the full-time job, and it usually goes something like this. After you get the job, second week, maybe third week, for some of those who get more auditions, maybe it's the first week, but you're like, hey boss, do you mind if I take my lunch at 2 o'clock today? I should be back by 3, if I'm lucky. The boss is okay with it. But the next week, when you say, hey boss, can I take my lunch at 10:30 today? And I only need a half hour because I need the other half hour at 4 o'clock, and then I'll come back. They're okay with it. The third time, the fourth time, usually by week 3, they're asking me about my commitment to the job because I'm not really present. And by the 5th week, they're asking for my resignation or firing me. This is a common story for so many of my friends, and thus the stereotype of, hey, I'm an actor. Hey, cool, that sounds awesome. What restaurant do you work at? Which is so very true for so many artists. I'm not knocking the restaurant industry or the service industry by any means. Actually, I applaud it, and I know it's hard work. Let's be honest, though. Typically, if you're a waiter or you're working in a kitchen, you're typically or often working nights after 4 o'clock. It's really easy to meet an audition in the day and go to work at night. You're also surrounded by a lot of other actors who, if you get an audition that conflicts with a schedule, you can call up the list that you work with and say, hey, can you cover my shift? And they get it, so they say yes. It's a great system. Kudos to the service industry and the way it works in respects to actors. but it can make life very challenging. Is that what I signed up for? Yes, it is, because I want to pursue my craft as an artist. Now, along that lines, I come back to when I started this industry. When I started this industry, it was very clear to me through my first agent, from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, Monday to Friday, I was on call. That was when I could get auditions. Typically, they would happen between 10 and 4, but 9 to 6, I was on call. My agent would call me in between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock because that's when auditions went out. And at 6 o'clock, if I didn't have an audition, I didn't have a phone call, and I knew I was off for the rest of the night. Occasionally, because there's exceptions to every rule in the book, my agent would call me a little bit later, maybe it was 7:30, and I'd find out that I had an audition for the next day. That's the key word right there, next day. It was rare to get an audition for anything less than the next day. So it means if you're out, or you're doing something and your agent called you late, you dropped everything, rushed home, got your audition material, and started working on it. That's the way it works. I signed up for this. I knew what I was doing. All joy and bliss. Now, as time went on, I noticed that my agent started calling more frequently later and later. I'd get calls around 8 o'clock, and it wasn't unusual anymore. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., I was getting calls from my agent saying, hey, you've got an audition tomorrow. No big deal. And then I noticed all of a sudden that my agent was calling me on Fridays for Saturday auditions and Sunday auditions. And Saturdays I was getting called, and Sundays I was getting called. And all of a sudden, as time progressed, the auditions became 24/7. And I'm not exaggerating about that. I spoke to my friends about this trend, and they all agreed that it was getting seemingly unmanageable. And I spoke to my agent. Many agents have gone by, I've progressed through, and I spoke to my most current agent at one time, and she actually said to me, Geoff, I don't turn my phone off. And I'll exemplify that. I woke up one morning at 5 o'clock to do my regular routine to get ready for my 8 o'clock shift start in the morning, and I had a message at 3 a.m. in the morning from my agent. I had a 9 a.m. audition that day, and she didn't get the information till 3 o'clock in the morning. What? This was the extreme case, but it wasn't very unique. That was like the 4th or 5th time it had happened. So this progression from when I started in the industry, where I knew that basically 9 to 5, 9 to 6, I was on call Monday to Friday, had changed to better make sure you're always available. I was getting auditions on Sundays. I was getting auditions on Saturdays. I was getting called at 11 o'clock at night because my agent had only received the call at 10:45 that somebody wanted to see me for an audition at 10 a.m. the following morning. And I have to admit, at 11 o'clock at night, it's really hard to find somebody to cover my 8 a.m. starting shift at the place I work. I'm lucky, I've got a pretty flexible job and they make some allowances for me. So thank you very much to my colleagues at work who support me. What I'm getting at is this chaos, and how does an artist, an actor specifically in this case, safely, humanely, realistically pursue their craft if you're on call 24/7? How do you make plans with your family for a holiday? What? Because yeah, I've had auditions during Christmas. Really? Now, this was pre-COVID times. COVID came along, and like the rest of the world, the acting industry and the arts all shut down. Actually, we got shut down pretty hard. The industry came together. We set our own standards. We made sure that everybody got their vaccinations, pre-vaccinations. We made sure we took precautions, and we opened up pretty quickly. One of the ways that we mitigated this challenge of proximity due to COVID was the self-tape. Now, the self-tape is not unique. It didn't just rise because of COVID. It's been around for a long time, but it was a rare use. Something that an actor might submit in hopes that they could be seen to get in for the next round of auditions, or maybe get lucky enough to get the part because their self-tape was good. Occasionally I'd get a request from my agent that somebody would like me to self-tape and send it to another province. You get the idea. Unusual, not new. So the self-tape, not being new, became the method of common practice for auditions. And I gotta be honest, I love them. My agent would call me on a Monday and say, hey, you've got a self-tape request. And I remember the very first self-tape request that I looked up. I looked at it and I shook my head and I closed my eyes and I opened them. I looked at it again. I was like, what? Due Thursday? It's like, I gotta be reading this wrong. Due Thursday. It was Monday. It was due on Thursday. I was like, oh my God, I got all the time in the world. I didn't have to get anybody to cover my shift. I didn't have to panic or freak out. I didn't have to leave drinks with my friends on Monday night because my audition was due at 9 o'clock in the morning. I finished my day out, came home, I reflected on what I had to do on Tuesday. I did my day shift because of my fortune of where I work. And after I got off work on Tuesday, I did my homework, prep for my audition. Later Tuesday night, I did my tape. Wednesday morning, I submitted it to my agent, and I was like 24 hours ahead of the deadline on this audition. A couple days later, I got another audition, a self-tape request yet again. And I looked at the deadline. It was due the following Monday. My mind was blown. And all of a sudden, auditions kept coming in, and the self-tape became the norm. Each one giving me 3 to 4 days. I was loving it. And this was for everything. Commercials, television, films, series, the works. 3 to 4 days. I'm in heaven. Because all of a sudden, I have control over when and how I get to do my auditions. There's an added bonus that comes from this. I'm now taking time to properly prep. When I've got 4 days and I've got 6 pages of sides, I'm doing the real homework to give my best performance on that self-tape. So when I submit on that Thursday morning, when I'm close to that deadline, it's a heck of a lot better than if I was submitting the next day, getting my sides at 8 o'clock at night. The rise in the quality of the work coming from the actor has increased. I got a few friends in casting. They've been telling me that they love the self-tape as well, because they don't have to fight to book space. They don't have to spend time in advance organizing and arranging that and getting readers for them, and they don't have to get all the logistics in place. They send out the note for the self-tape. The self-tapes arrive on their computer. They set themselves up with a cup of coffee after the deadline, and they start reviewing what comes in. There's no overhead costs for them either, because they're not renting out space. So they're saving money. They're making their life more leisurely. My life as an actor has become more leisurely. And all of a sudden, we've got a much more humane process that finally seems to be giving some respect to the craft that actors do and to the way that casting needs to survive without too much stress. It seems to be a win-win. Now, I really love the self-tape. I hope that's clear. If it's not, I'm going to say it again. I love the self-tape. I truly do. And I've been, taking a feel of things. I've been reading articles and I've been talking to friends, and I hear a lot of my friends saying they love the self-tape for every reason I just put down. I've talked to my friends in casting who say they love it for the same reasons that I've talked about already. All the articles, not all of, but most of the articles I've been reading from casting around the globe say that self-tapes are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. My friends believe they're here to stay. My friends in casting believe they're here to stay. But interspersed with some of that are the people who say, nope, as soon as we open up fully, we're going to go back to in-person auditions. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of going back to the harried lifestyle of, oh my gosh, it's 6:30. I've got to drop everything, rush home, learn 4 pages of sides, and get something in for 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm going to be up most of the night doing my homework and doing an audition at 2 a.m. I'm not into getting up at 9 a.m. in the morning to go to work and finding out I have a 4 o'clock audition and I need to find somebody to cover my shift. And I've got to lose that day's income and figure out how I'm going to make it up at the end of the month somehow to make sure my rent is paid. I'm not a fan of this, truthfully, and I'm not trying to slag the industry, but I'm putting in a bid that maybe some people in casting will hear this and see the side from the artist, see the side from the actor. When we receive our audition notice and have a couple days to prep it and give you our best work, not only do you get our best work, but you also have the opportunity and you have facilitated a better lifestyle, a more humane lifestyle for the actor. There's an added benefit of potential greater humanity for yourself in the fact that you're not doing crazy logistical things trying to sort out a rental space on a casting studio or some space you can work out of. You're saving yourself money. And I know that's got some trickle effect and affects those places that rent out, the studios that rent out, and they've got to find a different way to generate income because we're not using them the same way we used to. And that's one of the challenges, obviously, but people will move forward and we'll figure it out. I do agree that the in-person audition is necessary when you get to those final rounds, because the chemistry that happens on a camera when you're looking at two tapes isn't the same as when I'm reading right here to the person I might actually get cast with. A Zoom audition is another thing that's been on the rise, and Zoom auditions are great. And they work really well, in my personal opinion, for a second round because you can put 2 or 3 people on screen and have them read a scene together. And although it's not perfect and sometimes there's some lag time and computer challenges, it is fairly solid. Technology has kept up with us pretty darn decently. So we can do them by Zoom. Maybe you can do 2 or 3 rounds that way when you're looking at things. But I've got no problem when it comes down to that final round and they're saying it's between you and 3 others. I'd love to meet you in person. I'd love to read in person. And I will more than gladly give up my shift because I know that I've got that chance for the role, because I'm now down to a small pool of people versus that first audition when I might be one of 70, one of 80, one of 100 or more sometimes, going in with a chance at possibly getting booked while dropping an entire day's income for a passion agreeably. Yeah, I signed up for it. I come back to that. It doesn't mean it's not a challenge. And now that I've got a contrasting view called the self-tape and the opportunity to develop a powerful piece and give a great audition without losing income, without sacrificing a humane lifestyle, my vote's in for the continuation of the self-tape until the final round, when I'm one of 5, one of 3. This one was obviously a special one for the actors out there. I'm sure that many of you will agree. I'm sure that many of you will disagree with me. Leave your comments below in the comments box. If you liked it, share it, like it, subscribe to it. And those are your thoughts from your green room. I'm your host, Geoff Mays, and we'll see you in a number of weeks.